I give the floor to Mr. Jean-Pierre Lacroix.
Thank you, Mr. President. Excellencies, members of the Council, I welcome this opportunity to once again brief the Security Council. Today's open debate is timely as we prepare for the Summit of the Future and ahead of the Peacekeeping Ministerial Conference next May. And I'm very pleased to acknowledge the presence of my excellent co-briefers today, Dr. Confront and Ziad Rayad Al-Hussein. And I am encouraged by the large number of member states inscribed as speakers, symbolizing your strong support for peacekeeping. Now, in its 77th year, UN peacekeeping remains a cornerstone of multilateralism in action. However, peacekeeping faces formidable challenges, as does the multilateral system writ large. The UN peacekeeping operations can only ever be as strong as the collective support of the UN membership. As geopolitical tensions have mounted, including here in this Council, and amid shifting global and regional dynamics, peacekeeping operations are increasingly unable to rely on member states to act in a strong, unified manner to support peacekeeping efforts or the political processes they are mandated to support. In parallel, conflict is evolving. Peacekeeping missions are increasingly confronting drivers of conflict that have no borders, such as transnational organized crime, the illegal exploitation of natural resources, and the impact of climate change. Non-state actors engaged in these illicit activities are also weaponizing cheap technologies, such as improvised explosive devices and drones, and are propagating disinformation and hate speech. In such circumstances, at least one of the parties to the conflict often lack any political ambition beyond fueling disorder, making them reluctant parties to peace. Despite all these challenges, today over 70,000 peacekeepers bravely continue their vital work. Each day, they make a difference in protecting civilians, clearing mines and explosive remnants of war, monitoring fragile ceasefires, and preventing escalation of hostilities. I recently witnessed this firsthand at the Drodro camp for displaced persons in the Democratic Republic of the Congo's Ituri province. There, UN peacekeepers are alone in protecting over 100,000 civilians displaced as a result of ongoing fighting. In southern Lebanon, UNIFIL's personnel serve under the daily threat posed by the continued exchanges of fire across the Blue Line. As the only channel of communication between the two sides, the mission plays a critical role, avoiding miscalculation and misunderstanding to the extent possible, of course, between the two sides. I sincerely thank this Council for its confidence in UNIFIL by unanimously extending its mandate last month. Excellencies, allow me to share 5 messages on the key prerequisites for effective peacekeeping. First, the ultimate objective of all peacekeeping operations is political. All UN peacekeeping operations are designed to support peace agreements between parties to a conflict. In South Sudan, for example, UNMISS is engaging key stakeholders at both national and local levels to advance inclusive, consensual political solutions. At the very least, peacekeeping aims to build confidence and create conditions for a durable political process to take hold. While little progress has been achieved on the political process in Cyprus since 2017, the peacekeeping force UNFICYP continues its efforts to maintain calm, playing a preventive role and promoting an environment conducive for negotiations and an eventual settlement. Yet, there is only so much that peacekeeping can do on its own. For peacekeepers to be effective, the Council and the wider membership must muster strong, consistent and unified support for peacekeeping missions, and particularly to encourage the parties of the conflict to reach and implement political solutions to the conflict. A peacekeeping operation is and should always be one of the most concrete expressions of the collective resolve of the Security Council to effectively address conflict. I encourage the Council to fully leverage all tools at its disposal to support peacekeeping mandates. I acknowledge and I'm grateful for the often significant efforts by Council members to forge unity behind peacekeeping mandates, whilst bridging differences and considering various viewpoints, including those of the host state and regional actors. Importantly, the bilateral engagement of all United Nations member states with conflict parties must be consistent with the decisions taken by this Council. All member states should exert their diplomatic influence to back the political processes that peacekeeping operations are deployed to support and to encourage adversaries to commit to a peace agreement and its implementation. Such diplomatic support can make all the difference in crucial moments. We need broad coalition of member states to undergird the political efforts of peacekeepers. This was a central feature of all successful examples of peacekeeping operations, such as in Timor-Leste, Liberia, Côte d'Ivoire, and Sierra Leone, just to name a few. Second, the optimal performance of peacekeeping operations depends on mandates that provide clear strategic direction. They must be prioritized, achievable, adaptable to changing circumstances, and sufficiently resources. This is a critical factor for any mission to be fit for purpose. I recognize progress made by the Council in this regard, despite serious challenges. The Secretariat will continue to do its part, including by providing regular, clear, and frank assessments, as well as realistic recommendations and scenarios to support the Council's decision-making. We also welcome your views on what the Secretariat should do to improve. Mandates must also have the resources to match the Council's ambitions. Adopting long, detailed mandates without the requisite resources raises unrealistic expectations, which has the potential to fuel frustration amongst host states and their populations and provides fertile ground for mis- and disinformation. Third, today's complex challenges can only be addressed through network multilateralism and strong partnerships, locally, regionally, and globally. Organized crime, non-state armed groups with extremist ideologies, or the effects of climate change, many of today's conflict drivers do not respect national borders. Peacekeeping must adopt a much more integrated operational model with the wider UN system and regional and international partners. In Abyei, for example, UNESFA is successfully striking local peace agreements amongst herders and farmers who compete over increasingly scarce natural resources such as land and water. It has done so by working alongside UN and non-UN partners on the ground to facilitate a series of conferences ahead of cattle migration season, with the aim of preventing conflict and ensuring a peaceful resolution to the disputes that frequently arise in this season. Member states should provide the mandate, resources, and administrative flexibility that allow us to engage in such critical partnerships. Fourth, peacekeeping operations themselves must continually seek improvement. We need to continue to invest in strengthening the peacekeeping tool to make it more effective and adaptable to today's and tomorrow's challenges. We're currently looking at ways to update and adapt Action for Peacekeeping Plus by seeking to address systemic challenges that we've not yet sufficiently tackled. This may include areas such as community engagement and the better use of digital technologies. As I have previously conveyed to this Council, I remain committed to regularly update you on the challenges we face and the progress we achieve. The latest Action for Peacekeeping Plus progress report, which was circulated to all C34 member states last week, documents improvements and also challenges in key areas. Allow me to highlight a few. The safety, security, and well-being of peacekeepers remains an overriding concern. Over the past few years, the number of peacekeepers' fatalities due to malicious acts has decreased from 33 in 2022, of which 15 were from MINUSMA, to 7 in 2023, to 4 thus far in 2024. Of course, there are 4 too many. The closure of MINUSMA contributed to the decrease, but more important has been the considerable action taken by all peacekeeping missions and this headquarters to enhance peacekeeper security. Worryingly, however, the total number of hostile acts has increased across missions. The emerging threat of unmanned aerial vehicles is of rising concern. Peacekeeping operations are not immune to this threat, and 2024 marked the first recorded attack by an improvised armed UAS on a UN mission. The Department of Peace Operations is working closely with the Department of Operational Support to equip more peacekeepers with counter-UAS systems and training, but much more work is needed in cooperation with member states. We are also continuing to implement the Comprehensive Action Plan on peacekeeper security. Progress has been made in ensuring speedy and effective evacuation of injured peacekeepers. Both MINUSCA and UNESFA established casualty evacuation coordination cells, revised guidance, and continued trainings and stress tests. Violent crimes against peacekeepers are appalling and unacceptable. We will soon launch a database for member states mandated under Security Council Resolution 2589, and of course we will continue to relentlessly pursue accountability for these crimes. The Department of Operational Support has developed a mental health strategy for United Nations uniformed personnel and will soon launch the UN's Mind Companion digital platform in 16 languages. But we must all remember that too many peacekeepers succumb to illness, which remains the predominant cause of peacekeepers' fatalities. And of course, we all pay tribute to all fallen peacekeepers. Further progress on the safety and security of peacekeepers depends on sustained member state support, including through provision of specialized skills, equipment, and expertise. Effective mandate delivery demands peacekeeping must have the right capabilities and mindsets. Member states and the Secretariat are working collaboratively to maintain readiness of military and police units for deployment to field missions. The peacekeeping ministerial process has been instrumental in addressing capacity gaps. The last ministerial meeting in Accra in December 2023 resulted in 60 member states announcing new pledges, for which we're grateful. The next ministerial meeting in Berlin in May 2025 will be a key opportunity to look at the future of peacekeeping operations and to pledge critical capabilities for both current and possible future operations mission models. Important conceptual work for this event is already underway. I wish to thank Germany for hosting this conference. Of course, I'm also very grateful to Ghana for having hosted the previous and very successful conference. Excellency, the Women, Peace and Security agenda is a political and strategic imperative in all our efforts. Global trends concerning women's rights are deeply worrying, but the advocacy and engagement of our peacekeeping operations has made a difference. In the Central African Republic, for example, the mission is supporting the government's voter registration process, including through support to women's organizations, civic education, provision of birth certificates, and protection measures to enable women's full, equal, and meaningful participation in the upcoming local elections. Looking at our own ranks, we have met or surpassed all targets within the Uniform Gender Parity Strategy, with a notable exception being for military contingents. And all military missions are led by men. In all but a few instances, member states have only nominated men for these positions. Of course, we strongly urge member states to provide greater access for women to military leadership positions at home and to nominate them for service in our peacekeeping operations. On the civilian side, we've been more successful, with the women making up 46% of our heads of mission and deputy head of mission positions in the multi-dimensional missions. Strategic and operational integration within missions and with our partners is pivotal for greater effectiveness. We continue to strengthen integrated analysis and planning. In the Central African Republic, for example, MINUSMA developed a political strategy providing a 5-year strategic vision and a mission plan. And 8 of our missions have SISG-approved mission plans. To ensure this number increases, the Department of Peace Operations is developing a package of guidance and support for missions to ensure that all have mission plans informed by a political strategy. Effective integration is equally critical during phases of transition. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, the joint disengagement plan signed by the government and MONUSCO in November 2023 is a key reference for the mission's gradual, responsible, and sustainable withdrawal. MONUSCO is guided by a body of lessons learned from its own transition experience so far and those from other peacekeeping transitions. And we're also in the process of documenting important lessons from the experience of MINUSMA. Going forward, we must further integrate the multilateral system to more ably address the drivers of conflict that span over regions and continents. I would also like to emphasize that in all peacekeeping mission contexts, the United Nations remain fully committed to preventing sexual exploitation and abuse and achieve accountability. We continue to strengthen our efforts to ensure accountability, including where needed, the repatriation of personnel involved in misconduct. We continue to prioritize maintaining the highest standards of conduct for all peacekeeping personnel and protecting victim rights. Mr. President, my 5th and final message is that even with all the political commitment and necessary investment, peacekeeping obviously has its limits. Blue helmets can act robustly to protect civilians, but they do not fight wars. Where there is no ceasefire or political agreement whatsoever, enforcement action carried out by partners may be required. The unanimous adoption of Security Council Resolution 2719 marked a major milestone by enabling African Union-led peace support operations to access United Nations assessed contributions on a case-by-case basis. Significant progress has already been achieved in the operationalization of the resolution, including the finalization of a joint roadmap, the AU-UN roadmap for implementation focused on 4 thematic work streams. We are working very well with our African Union Commission counterparts to elevate our joint operational readiness for the time when we may be called to deploy and support an AU peace operation supported by UN asset contributions. So, Mr. President and distinguished members of the Council, we are at a pivotal moment. In 2 weeks' time, the Summit of the Future will present world leaders with once-in-a-generation opportunity to bolster and restore trust in the multilateral system, where the verdict remains out, when the verdict remains out on whether member states remain fully committed to multilateral solutions to crisis. The summit will be a moment to reappraise and reaffirm the inherent strengths that have made peacekeeping successful over nearly 8 decades. I am hopeful that world leaders will adopt an ambitious pact for the future that gives a clear and strong mandate to continue our efforts to make peacekeeping fit for the challenges of today and tomorrow. Peacekeeping has proven itself as a key tool of this Council, and it must continue to adapt to meet future challenges. In the run-up to the next Peacekeeping Ministerial meeting, we will continue to explore the reforms and possible models that may enable UN peacekeeping and peace operation more generally to address the evolving nature of conflict. The onus is on all of us to ensure that we are ready. Every day, UN peacekeepers are bravely saving countless lives for a relatively small investment, but their missions need the attention, political backing, and resources they deserve. There are few better tools for securing peace in a fragile age. Thank you.
I thank Mr. Lacroix for his briefing. I give the floor to Ms. Comfort Arrow.